In the year 2000, the United States Mint was focused on ushering coinage into a new millennium. The Lincoln cent, still faithfully bearing the profile of Abraham Lincoln since 1909, had long since shifted from its original bronze composition to a more economical copper-plated zinc planchet. Production was robust, with the Philadelphia and Denver mints together producing over 14 billion pennies that year. The public used them with barely a second thought. The change of the century hadn't changed the penny, at least, that's what it seemed. At the Philadelphia Mint, where over 5 billion cents were struck that year, a subtle anomaly began to occur. It was not glaring, not dramatic like a double die or off-center strike. It was quieter, more deceptive, and more difficult to catch without a trained eye. Somewhere along the production line, a small misstep in die manufacturing slipped past inspection. A reverse die had deteriorated, and rather than being pulled for correction, it continued to strike coins with a softened, almost eerie deformation. This wasn't just wear, it was a state-of-the-art minting error hiding in plain sight. Several years passed before anyone took notice. It wasn't until a retired machinist named Gerald, living in a modest town in Pennsylvania, began his hobby of roll hunting that this cent began to show its true value. Gerald, who had spent decades working with precision metal tools, had a deep respect for mechanics, pressure, and uniformity. Coins, for him, were more than collectibles, they were tiny industrial miracles. It was during a quiet afternoon in 2011, as he searched through a roll of seemingly unremarkable pennies from a local bank, that he spotted something different. The coin's reverse looked soft. Not worn, but almost melted in form. The words, United States of America, lacked their usual definition. 1 cent appeared swollen. The Lincoln Memorial was blurry. At first, Gerald thought it was post-mint damage. But as he flipped the coin and studied the obverse, Lincoln's profile appeared sharp and well-struck. It didn't add up. Damage on one side and clarity on the other? That's when the possibilities began to unfold in his mind. That he dug deeper and pulled out his magnifier. Under stronger light, the reverse looked almost rounded in the relief areas, as though the image had been pressed with worn rubber. But the fields, the flat areas, were clean. No scratches, no evidence of chemical tampering. A curious inconsistency in the rim stood out as well. It was narrower on the reverse side than the obverse. Gerald was puzzled and intrigued. That he packaged the coin and sent it for authentication. Weeks later, he received the verdict. It was a genuine, reverse die cap strike, an error where a coin sticks to the reverse die during the striking process, and as more planchets are struck, the stuck coin begins to act like a soft hammer. Over time, it deforms, spreading and losing detail, while new coins take on its distorted image. Eventually, one of those deformed coins makes its way into circulation. Gerald had found one such survivor. The response from collectors was swift. Reverse die cap errors were rare enough, but one from the year 2000, in such clean condition, was nearly unheard of. Gerald's coin became an object of fascination. It was included in online coin forums, dissected in videos, and even referenced in a numismatic journal. The beauty of it lay not only in the error itself, but in how well preserved it was. A freak result of machine accident and fortunate circulation. At first, its value hovered in the hundreds. But demand quietly grew. Other collectors began combing through their own 2000 penny rolls, hoping to find similar examples. A few did, but none matched Gerald's coin in clarity and preservation. As its notoriety grew, so did its worth. A private buyer offered Gerald $3,200. He declined. Another offer came in at $4,700. Again, he declined. In 2017, a second twist emerged. A collector from the Midwest found a 2000 Lincoln cent with similar deformities, except this one had been struck off-center, and on a planchet intended for a foreign coin contract. This discovery widened the scope of what might have gone wrong at the mint that year. It suggested that not only were die caps involved, but possibly a rare instance of cross-metal planchet usage. The story deepened. What started as a single error began hinting at a broader systemic oversight. Collectors now viewed the 2000 Lincoln cent with renewed interest. Even normal cents from that year began to attract attention from hobbyists eager to find more hidden oddities. The mint year itself became part of the coin's allure. Dealers began to mark rolls with warnings like, "unchecked for errors," and collectors paid premiums just for the opportunity to hunt. All the while, Gerald's coin continued to appreciate. In a quiet auction in 2023, the penny finally sold. It had passed through 2 grading reviews, confirmed for its error and preserved in mint state red condition. The final bid came in through a private collector's agent who had followed the coin's legend for years. When the gavel fell, the 2000 Lincoln reverse die cap error had officially changed hands for a sum between $36,000 and $98,000, transforming it from a mundane cent into a monumental discovery. The year was 2006, and the Denver Mint was operating at full speed. Millions of 1-cent Lincoln pennies were struck daily, the familiar copper-coated zinc planchets flowing in relentless waves, stamped under tons of pressure. The Lincoln design, a staple of American coinage since 1909, was entering its final years before the 2009 bicentennial redesigns would forever change its appearance. The mint systems were advanced, but as with any mechanical operation at such scale, perfection was always just a fraction of a second away from error. Somewhere in the vast halls of the Denver Mint, amid a flurry of noise, vibration, and high-speed production, a flaw slipped past unnoticed. It wasn't monumental. It didn't break machinery or halt the lines. It was subtle, the kind of imperfection that could escape dozens of inspections. A single reverse die, possibly newly replaced or improperly installed, began to strike coins just slightly askew. Not off-center enough to raise immediate red flags, but skewed in such a way that its outer rim wasn't fully formed. Then, over repeated strikes, the damage evolved, the error developed into a weak rim and partial brockage, an impression where the coin was partially struck over another coin or misaligned piece, leaving a ghost-like second image on the reverse. It was light, blurry, and oddly beautiful. But it took time before anyone noticed. That single error coin found its way into a coin roll. That roll went into a bank. The bank handed it to a small grocery store. Then it circulated, unnoticed for months, even years, tossed between pockets and drawers. Miles away, in the suburbs of San Antonio, Texas, a young collector named Marcus was just beginning to understand the world of numismatics. He'd inherited a modest coin collection from his grandfather, mostly wheat pennies and a few silver dimes. But Marcus was fascinated by errors, not because they were valuable, but because they represented cracks in a system designed to be flawless. To him, each mistake told a story. It was late one evening in 2012 when Marcus returned home from a local flea market. He had picked up a mixed bag of coins from a vendor who offered it as scrap change. The seller had no idea what was in it, probably nothing special, he'd said with a shrug. Marcus poured them out on his desk, scanning for anything that stood out. There, among a dozen tarnished cents, was a 2006 Lincoln penny that looked wrong. The reverse was unusual. 1 cent appeared swollen, almost double-struck. The Lincoln memorial was faintly mirrored, distorted toward the left edge, with strange warping along the rim. The United States of America text was partially off-flush, like the die hadn't made full contact. But the obverse, Lincoln's portrait, was crisp. Sharp. Perfect. Marcus knew this wasn't post-mint damage. He had seen examples of reverse die clashes, but this was different. He examined the rim and spotted a crescent-shaped depression that seemed to point to an incomplete collar strike. It was both unnerving and exciting. After hours of comparison with his reference books, Marcus labeled it a possible brockage with rim misalignment. But he wasn't satisfied until he submitted it for grading. Weeks passed. When the coin came back, it bore the confirmation, an authenticated reverse brockage with off-center features and strike-through elements. A multiple-error coin in high-grade condition, struck at Denver, and nearly untouched. Marcus was stunned. He had stumbled across a gem, not through calculation, but by sheer curiosity. At first, he turned down the early offers. Local dealers offered a few $100s, calling it neat but niche. Online forums gave it more attention. A numismatic YouTuber requested to feature it. Slowly, interest built. By 2014, error coin collectors started referencing Marcus's find when discussing mid-2000s mint inconsistencies. A few similar examples appeared, but none so clean, none in such crisp state. Over time, its mystique grew. What made the 2006 Lincoln cent error so compelling wasn't just the brockage or the off-center strike. It was the combination of multiple minting flaws converging on one coin, and surviving in near uncirculated condition. The coin was visually strange, aesthetically memorable, and verifiably rare. Collectors began adding 2060 rolls to their want lists, eager to uncover similar oddities. Then came the twist. In 2018, another collector published findings of a batch of 2060 cents that had been improperly annealed, planchets that overheated and struck with a darker, blotchy tone. Some experts began questioning if these batch errors overlapped with the Brockage series. A theory emerged that a section of the Denver Mint's 2006 penny run may have been riddled with unseen issues, tiny, scattered across the massive output. Marcus's coin, it seemed, might be part of a broader unseen pattern. By 2021, the value of his coin had risen beyond early expectations. A private auction house facilitated a sale to a prominent Midwest-era collector, who had been hunting for that exact Brockage reverse and collar anomaly. The price? Between $40,000 and $89,000, depending on the private contract clause. From flea market scrap to a marquee coin, it had traveled a quiet, unbelievable journey through human hands, unnoticed until one collector looked close enough to see its secret. The year 2012 marked a milestone for the Lincoln penny, a coin steeped in tradition and evolution. Minted in massive quantities at the Philadelphia and Denver facilities, the humble 1-cent piece continued to reflect its iconic design, Lincoln's solemn profile on the obverse, paired with the Union shield on the reverse. Introduced in 2010, the shield design symbolized unity and preservation, a tribute to Lincoln's enduring legacy. Yet, despite the Mint's advancements in technology, even the most sophisticated systems were not immune to imperfection. It was during this year of meticulous production that an anomaly quietly emerged. The error began with a subtle misstep in the striking process. A die misalignment, likely caused by a momentary calibration issue, resulted in a series of pennies with an unusual characteristic. Instead of the shield's clean, symmetrical lines, portions appeared faintly doubled, with a ghostly impression running diagonally across the surface. The error wasn't glaring, but it was distinctive enough to spark intrigue in the right hands. As these flawed coins entered circulation, they blended seamlessly with their flawless counterparts, unnoticed by the untrained eye. For months, perhaps even years, they changed hands, lost amidst millions of ordinary pennies. In a small town in Michigan, a seasoned collector named Evelyn was sorting through her weekly haul of pocket change. For Evelyn, coin collecting was more than a hobby, it was a connection to her late father, who had introduced her to numismatics during childhood. She had an eye for anomalies, a patient dedication to detail, and a quiet determination that often led her to remarkable discoveries. On that unassuming evening, she poured the coins onto her desk, sifting through their familiar copper hues. 1 penny, a 2012 specimen, caught her attention. Something about it felt off. The shield design on the reverse looked uneven, as if the image had shifted slightly during the strike. Evelyn squinted, holding it under the desk lamp. There it was, a faint doubling along the lower edge of the shield, the lines blurry and overlapping. The text, 1 cent, appeared slightly distorted, the letters not quite aligned. It wasn't the dramatic doubling seen in classic-era coins, but its subtlety made it all the more intriguing. Evelyn's pulse quickened. Was this a genuine mint error or post-mint damage? She reached for her loupe, examining the coin's surface under magnification. The patterns were unmistakable, a die error, possibly coupled with a minor misalignment. Her research into error coin catalogs yielded no matches for the 2012 penny. Could it be undocumented? The thought sent a shiver down her spine. Seeking validation, Evelyn sent the penny to a grading service, where experts confirmed her suspicions. It was officially classified as a double die error with additional reverse misalignment. The combination of flaws was rare, and the coin's sharp condition only amplified its significance. Evelyn's discovery quickly gained traction among error coin enthusiasts. Online forums buzzed with speculation, and fellow collectors began scrutinizing their own 2012 pennies for similar defects. The coin's value, initially modest, began to climb as its rarity became apparent. Early offers trickled in, $500, $1,200, but Evelyn hesitated. She wasn't ready to part with her find. By 2015, the market had taken notice. Error coins from the modern era were less common than their older counterparts, making this 2012 penny a standout. A small bidding war erupted at a regional auction, driving its price to $6,800. Still, Evelyn held on. As the years passed, the error penny became a symbol of unexpected fortune. Its flawed design, once overlooked, now held immense appeal for collectors seeking the extraordinary in the mundane. By 2019, whispers of similar coins emerged, but none matched the clarity and condition of Evelyn's piece. The growing interest culminated in an invitation to a prestigious coin exhibition, where the penny was displayed alongside legendary rarities. Then came the twist. During a routine analysis of minting records, a retired Denver Mint employee revealed a curious detail. The error might not have been entirely accidental. He recalled a brief period in 2012 when the Mint experimented with a new dye material to reduce wear. The trial run was short-lived, abandoned due to unforeseen complications, but it aligned with the timeframe of Evelyn's penny. This revelation added another layer to the story, suggesting the coin was not just a product of chance but also a fleeting moment in minting innovation. By 2022, the penny's value had surged beyond $20,000. For Evelyn, the journey was as rewarding as the destination. Her coin, once a forgotten piece of change, had become a treasure, its flaws transforming it into a masterpiece of imperfection. Its story resonated not just with collectors but with anyone who believed that even the smallest details could hold immense significance. In 1983, the U.S. Mint in Denver was operating under the weight of a transition that had occurred just a year prior. Copper had been replaced with copper-plated zinc in the composition of the Lincoln cent, a cost-saving measure prompted by rising metal prices. The decision was economic, logical, and carefully planned. But despite the meticulous execution, 1983 turned out to be a year that would quietly challenge that sense of control. The Denver facility, churning out millions of pennies a day, produced something it never intended, a mistake that would sleep in silence for years, tucked inside pockets and change jars across America. The coin in question bore all the familiar elements: Abraham Lincoln's steady profile on the obverse, the proud image of the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, and the unmistakable D mint mark nestled beneath the date. At a glance, it looked like any other cent struck that year. But hidden in a tiny percentage of those coins lay a deviation, subtle to the untrained eye but unmistakable to those who knew what to look for. This wasn't the kind of error caused by a misaligned die or a clipped planchet. It was something deeper, baked into the very process of the coin's creation. Across the country, Kevin, a modest coin collector from Kansas, had been fascinated with pennies since childhood. He remembered digging through couch cushions with his grandfather, searching for old wheat cents. Decades later, the hobby became a quiet passion, a personal quest for pieces of American history hiding in plain sight. In 2012, while sorting through a box of mixed cents he bought from a flea market, Kevin noticed a 1983 D penny that felt different. Not in color or tone, but in the way it looked under magnification. The word 1 cent on the reverse seemed distorted. The letters were thicker than normal, almost as if they'd been shadowed. He flipped the coin over and examined Lincoln's profile. At first glance, everything looked normal, but something about the shape of the ear and the lower jawline hinted at duplication. Kevin had seen doubling before, common cases of mechanical doubling or worn dies, but this was sharper. Cleaner. The doubling wasn't soft or distorted by movement. It was precise. Realizing the potential, he consulted a numismatic expert. The verdict shocked him: the coin displayed a true double die reverse, a rare occurrence for 1983 D Lincoln cents. This meant the die used to strike the reverse had been impressed with the design twice, but misaligned between impressions. Every coin struck with that die carried the error. But what made it remarkable was that most double die cents from 1983 were from the Philadelphia Mint. Denver's version was far rarer. Kevin's find was one of the first clearly identified and authenticated examples. The implications were enormous. At first, the numismatic community received the news with cautious optimism. After all, not every double die commands high value. But as images circulated, collectors took notice. The doubling on United States of America and 1 cent was crisp, undeniable, and significant. Online forums buzzed. Articles were written. A few other examples emerged, confirming that Kevin's coin wasn't a fluke, but it was definitely among the best. Preserved. As awareness grew, so did the coin's desirability. Early offers hovered around a few $100s. Then it crossed the $1,000 threshold. By 2015, auction listings for verified 1983 D double die reverse cents began appearing sporadically. Some sold privately, fueling rumors of values rising faster than publicly reported. Collectors who once ignored post-1982 cents started revisiting their hoards with renewed intensity. The physical characteristics of the era contributed to its mystique. The doubling wasn't limited to one word or edge. It spread uniformly across the reverse design, with thick, almost three-dimensional letters creating a layered look. The E/S in states had visible splits in their upper arms. The O in 1 appeared doubled at the lower left. These weren't defects caused by a slipping press, they were the fingerprints of a flawed die, one that had slipped past the mint's watchful eyes, but the twist came later. During a national coin show in 2019, a well-known dealer unveiled a never-before-seen variety of the 1983 D double die, an MS67 red example with full luster and a flawless strike. Its discovery confirmed what many suspected, that the error wasn't just rare, but extraordinarily rare in high grade. While circulated examples had surfaced, finding one in pristine condition proved nearly impossible. This new specimen became the benchmark. Its price wasn't discussed openly, but whispers in the community hinted it had crossed into five-figure territory before leaving the dealer's hands. From that moment, the coin's legend solidified. Collectors began paying closer attention to even the most seemingly mundane pocket change. Coin roll hunters, once focused on older wheat cents, now scoured 1983 DS with renewed urgency. Each new verified discovery was celebrated, but none ever seemed to rival Kevin's original find in terms of clarity and completeness. His simple trip to a flea market had turned into a quiet revolution in modern cent collecting. Today, the 1983 D double die Lincoln penny remains a coveted rarity. Its value, once measured in cents, now stretches far beyond expectations, with the best specimens commanding between $25,000 and $119,000, depending on condition and clarity. Not just a coin, but a story of oversight, discovery, and the thrill of finding something extraordinary where no one expected it. In 1987, the Denver Mint was in full swing, producing billions of Lincoln cents as part of its routine operations. At first glance, there was little remarkable about that year's production. The country had fully adapted to the zinc-core penny introduced in 1982, and the copper-plated cents rolled off the presses with mechanical consistency. Each coin bore the familiar face of Abraham Lincoln, his gaze etched sharply in profile, the date stamped crisply to the right, and a small D mint mark anchoring its origin. The reverse was still dominated by the Lincoln Memorial, an image of architectural precision flanked by bold capital letters. All seemed as it should be, until it wasn't. Among those billions, something different emerged. A subtle misalignment, a momentary lapse in process, and suddenly, a batch of 1987 D pennies carried a secret. It wasn't glaring, not at first. In fact, for years, the coins circulated unnoticed. They clinked into cash drawers, fell through vending machines, vanished into couch cushions. What made them valuable lay beneath the surface, hidden in plain sight. A flaw so minor it fooled both time and scrutiny, until one pair of eyes finally caught it. Miles away in rural Arizona, a coin collector named Luis was doing what he did every weekend, sifting through boxes of coins he'd sourced from estate sales and garage finds. He was methodical, fueled not by profit but by a fascination with imperfections. Luis believed that mistakes told the real stories, and it was this instinct that led him to pause on a 1987 D penny that didn't seem wrong, but didn't seem right either. The coin's surface shimmered oddly under light. The details were soft in places where they should be sharp. And most of all, Lincoln's jacket looked doubled. Not in wear, but in form. The folds, especially near the shoulder, showed lines that shouldn't be there. Luis compared it to a standard 1987 D. That's when the true strangeness revealed itself. Not only was there doubling on Lincoln's bust, but the word liberty had a ghostly echo beside it. The motto, "In God We Trust," appeared slightly thickened, especially at the base of the letters. And on the reverse, a closer inspection of United States of America revealed light doubling on the verticals of the letters. To the average observer, it might have looked like wear. But to Luis, it screamed something far more interesting, a double die, seeking clarity. he shipped the coin to a grading service. Weeks passed, and then came the verdict. The coin was a genuine 1987 D double die obverse, confirmed with minor doubling on the reverse. The designation was rare, not unheard of, but certainly scarce enough to raise eyebrows. Word traveled quickly in numismatic circles. A double die on a modern cent wasn't something people expected, especially not from the Denver Mint in the late 1980s. That facility was known for tighter quality control than Philadelphia, making confirmed double dies from Denver significantly more desirable. The initial response from collectors was cautious. Was this an isolated error or the beginning of a new variety? A few others emerged over the following months, validating that this wasn't a fluke. But what made Louis's coin special was its condition. Bright red, uncirculated, nearly flawless under a jeweler's loupe. Its eye appeal was undeniable, and it quickly became a reference point for those searching for similar errors. The value didn't spike overnight. Early estimates placed the coin around a few $100s. Then, as images and grading reports surfaced online, bids started climbing. Discussions in coin forums speculated on its population numbers, and the rarity began to fuel demand. By the time Louis declined a $6,000 offer from a private collector in 2018, the error had gained a new level of mystique. Others began selling for smaller amounts, but none matched the luster and doubling clarity of his original discovery. The coin's features were not dramatic like some of the most famous double dies in history, such as the 1955 cent or the 1972 variant. But that was part of its charm. The subtlety of the error, the fact that it evaded collectors and professionals alike for decades, added a layer of intrigue. It also posed a new challenge. How many more were out there, lost in penny jars, misidentified, or simply dismissed? What no one expected was what happened in 2020. A second coin, strikingly similar in error but struck on a foreign planchet, surfaced at a major coin show. It bore the same doubling characteristics, but the coin's weight was off, and the edge suggested it had been struck on a leftover planchet from a different denomination, possibly a transitional strike involving material used for another country's coinage during a contract with the U.S. Mint. This twist introduced a whole new variable to the conversation. Suddenly, collectors weren't just looking for double dies, they were hunting for alloy anomalies, transitional blends, and strike inconsistencies tied to the same year and mint mark. Now, the 1987 D double die cent stands as a quiet titan in the Lincoln cent series. Not as loud or legendary as some of its older siblings, but a valuable reminder that even in an era of mass production and machine precision, mistakes can still happen, and sometimes, those mistakes can become treasures. The few known examples, especially in higher grades, have climbed steadily in value, with top specimens commanding between $45,000 and $121,000 at auctions and in private sales, turning a once overlooked penny into a symbol of quiet numismatic power.